Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys Star Wars 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at kind of a reissue, but also kind of not. This is the 40th anniversary version of Darth Vader from, of course, Empire Strikes Back. Just like we got the Kenner-inspired version of Boba Fett, this is meant to be a classic-ish representation of Darth Vader, except it also kind of isn't. It's pretty much just a straight-up reissue. I'm quite curious to see if there are any changes with this new version, in of course air quotes, compared to the original version of Empire Strikes Back Darth Vader. Now, I picked up mine from toyswonderland.com. They are in stock and ready to ship right now. Link for that is, of course, in the description below. They do have 12-month installment plans if you're a fan of paying off your figures over time. Also, while you are down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon so you're notified as soon as brand new content goes live on the channel. Why not also check out the join button for Justin's Collection Plus to get early access to some videos, as well as a 5% off code for toyswonderland.com. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here, of course, we have the more boring of the two box art options for Darth Vader. What do you mean, Justin? Well, keen-eyed viewer, what I mean is this piece here, this facade, is just a slipcover. You can literally slide it off, and then there is a much more interesting retro Kenner-inspired box artwork underneath. This looks fantastic. I really like the way they've done it. Unfortunately, they have changed the dimensions of a regular Hot Toys box. It's a lot thicker and a lot taller, but more narrow. It's interesting the way they've done it. It's almost identical to what we saw with the Boba Fett in the classic Kenner colors, so at least this guy and that figure will match really nicely. A beautiful silver foil sticker that says The Empire Strikes Back 40th Anniversary Collection. I really like that. Darth Vader on the side here, that really nice and classic Empire Strikes Back logo with these sort of silver rails around the edges. Another image of Darth Vader on the side there. Now, as I said, I'm super curious to see if this guy is in fact any different compared to the original release. Honestly, it's not my favorite design in terms of a figure format for Darth Vader. The Empire figure kind of had a really weird helmet design, whereas all of the previous versions looked a little bit more classic, if you know what I mean. Now let's see if this guy is in fact an improvement or exactly the same as the Empire version. Now, as you can see, here we have Vader on top, and his base is actually housed underneath. Really interesting because that base is a big honkin' base. I'm quite surprised they managed to fit it in here. Now, of course, Hot Toys always like to tuck the cape in the back there, but here we have Vader himself. Something that I learned from my original review is take care of the dome. It does like to fall off in the unboxing experience, but here we have him, and I have to say, he looks pretty darn good. At first glance, he looks eerily familiar, obviously, compared to the original version, but I have to say, it feels really darn sturdy. If you've never owned a Darth Vader figure before, when you do go ahead and pick this guy up, just know that you're getting a big honkin' mass of a figure, and this guy looks fantastic. But as you can see, he does come with a bunch of accessories, so what we are going to do now is get all of this stuff laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of the accessories that come with Darth Vader, and as you can see, they're the same. It's the exact same array as the original, and yes, I have, off camera, compared the display base to the original one, and the differences were so minute that it's not even worth comparing them on camera. It's identical. The footprint is the same, the paint is the same, and of course, the sculpt is as well. I love this display base. It's a diorama style piece. It's not too overly large in terms of the depth. Yes, it is a lot wider, but you'll find in most collections, width in terms of the display base space, you've got a lot more rather than depth. So for me, this works really nicely. You do have a regular style crotch grabber on the top there, and this thing is painted to the nines. If you're not going to give a character such as Darth Vader a bunch of accessories, at the very least give him a diorama style display base like they've done right here. And of course, the cherry on top, you do have the pulsating lights of the guardrail there. They look really good and they are super super bright, they do flash in sequence. That is a really nice touch. So too is the weathering on these pieces that have been sliced off. That looks fantastic. They're singed and gnarly. You can see the detail on the inside there, and some subtle black stippling down the edges to show that it has been charred by a superheated lightsaber blade. That is a really nice touch. Honestly, this happens to be one of my personal favorite Hot Toys diorama style display bases. Now let's take a look at the hands. It's the same array as before. Let's talk about this one. In my previous Vader video, I said this was for crossing his arms, and it is. You can use it to cross the arms with, but some people have also said, no Justin, it's the one he used to stop Han Solo's blaster bolts, and yes, you can use it for that as well. Both purposes are quite fitting. I do like the sculpt here. It's not like the A New Hope Darth Vader that had those leather pads that you actually had to velcro on the hands. They stopped doing that, and thank goodness they did. This, in my opinion, is the best way of doing it, a proper, fully sculpted rubber piece. You can see, though, that it is a rather large crevice. Trying to fish a hand peg out of there is a bit of a challenge. Luckily, they are pliable enough that, fingers crossed, when you are switching the hands out, you don't have to worry about them holding on to the wrist pegs themselves. Now, he does come with the light up lightsaber arm. You can see I have left the battery compartment off. Flicking the switch, unfortunately, the light is once again red. That means that, unfortunately, it doesn't travel the length of the blade. For those of you who don't know, red LEDs or red torches are actually specifically used by the military because they're a little bit harder to see in the field. They're dimmer compared to white ones. The blade itself is red. You don't have to use a red LED. It would have worked even better, in my opinion, with a white one. And don't worry, we will do a shot in just a second to show you what the light up effects look like in the dark. Now, of course, he does come with his lightsaber hilt. You can remove the blade. It is a little bit stiff in there, but don't worry, it does come out. Then you can, of course, plug in the swooshing effect one. This happens to be one of my favorite accessories for a Star Wars figure. It just brings the thing to life. You can have Darth Vader swooshing off and slicing the top of these pylons off. It's a really nice effect. The hilt itself is very well done. It's again identical to the previous release, but the sculpt was already immaculate, and that nice shiny silver paint looks really darn metallic. What we are going to do now, though, is get Darth Vader himself out here and take a closer look. And here we have Lord Vader himself, standing straight up and down the lightbox, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And I have to say, this guy in a super simple basic pose, as simple as him literally just standing there looking slightly up with his hands ever so slightly resting on his belt boxes, he just looks imposing as heck. I am loving how good the Empire Vader is. But is that a huge surprise? I already really did like the original. They've tightened up a few tolerances here and there on the outfit. Everything else, though, is pretty much exactly as it was on the original version, meaning it's a great Vader figure. I said in that review that from a value perspective, it's kind of the best one. You're getting a big honkin' diorama style display base, a bunch of hands, you can actually remove the dome, and of course you do get the light up arm with the swooshing lightsaber effect. None of the others really come with as much stuff. Yes, with the A New Hope version, you get the actual voice box, and you do get the interrogation droid. I would trade that stuff, at least in my personal opinion, for the diorama display base any day of the week. This guy, in my opinion, now I've said that a couple of times, so you can't get mad at me, is the superior Darth Vader. Yet again, the value is definitely there. They don't really come with a bunch of stuff, so the stuff that is included with this guy really shows how well crafted some of these bits and pieces can be. Now what we are going to do next is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal. Now we are going to move relatively quickly on this review because technically I've already reviewed the Empire Darth Vader, and this is identical to the previous release. There's no need to spend as much time as I did on the original video. Starting off with the helmet design, initially I didn't really like it, but I've come around to it. The more sort of angular nature of the eyes themselves, yes, there is still that significant gap above the brow there, but honestly, over time, it really hasn't bothered me. You can see a lot of detail, including the back of the head there, but unfortunately, the rest of the mask cannot detect detach. It's a fully fixed piece. There's no head sculpt underneath. I would assume they're saving that for the Return of the Jedi one when they eventually get around to doing it. You can see though that just like in the film, they have the different coloured sections. This one is black, this one is gunmetal, and I said in the film they did that as well, just to give you a little bit of contrast, because on camera, if you make it just all one colour, you do lose a lot of the detail. One thing that I didn't notice on the original, but when I went back and checked, it is definitely there. It's the fact that that little hook piece is sculpted onto the chain of the cape. That is ingenious. That means that hook is not getting damaged, nothing's getting torn or pushed or pulled. That is a perfect way of doing it. And of course, speaking of the cape, this material is super light and it drapes perfectly. I love this cape material. Now the armor itself is also really nice and glossy. In Empire, the outfit was pretty much pristine. For some reason, in sequel films, they always do a really nice job of making stuff look even better. I'm talking, of course, Batman Returns. The suit had a huge upgrade and looked super sleek. So too did Darth Vader. The armor plating went over the top of these inner robes, and so too does it on the figure itself. You can see the chest box has a bunch of detail in there. It's all identical to the original release. You can also see a bunch of scuffing around the edges of the belt boxes, and of course the belt buckle as well. The cool thing about Vader is you can kind of futz everything to get it looking the way you want. Heck, if you wanted to take off this armor plate, put these robes over the top and kind of create yourself a New Hope or Rogue One look, you can totally do that. It's your figure. Treat it how you wish. Now the undersuit material is unfortunately entirely made of pleather, just like it has been on all of the previous Vader releases. It's big, it's poofy, it's accurate to the film, yes, but over time, if you do have his arms resting on his belt boxes there, which is a very iconic pose for Vader, you can just see you'll get a bunch of creases, and it may eventually crack over time, so please, if you are posing your Vader in the belt box holding pose like I have, just be careful. Now the boots and the shin guards themselves, super darn glossy. They are just actually velcroed on the front with a strap around the back, but they're not really meant to be detached. They do look, once again, identical to the original version. That's fine, they were already pretty much flawless, so too with the design of the boots. Very square at the toe in the front there, but that is accurate to the film. And here we have Darth Vader's light up effect with the lights in the light box turned off, and I have to say, it actually doesn't look too terribly bad down here at the base and then at the tip, but in the middle section, for some reason it just dies out. Again, if they'd used a white LED, it would have been stronger, it would have been brighter, and I do think the blade would have lit up slightly better. Unfortunately, they're not in the habit of doing that, therefore we get these kind of cool, but also kind of not, lightsaber effects. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the original Empire Vader on the left compared to the new guy on the right. Don't be fooled by the subtleties of the pose and how the head is pointing up slightly on the new one. They're exactly the same. Same height, same detail, same sculpt, paint apps, everything is identical between these two releases. There is no real reason to go ahead and pick up this new version over the original if you already have him. They are exactly the same. It's not like the situation with the A New Hope Vader, where if you get the one with the Tarkin 2-pack, it's kind of a V2 and has some subtle improvements. That didn't happen here. Even the weathering detail is identical between these two. The only real upgrade is the box art. I'm a sucker for that vintage-inspired box art, hence why I had to go ahead and pick up a second Empire Vader. Also, it's a really darn solid release. Just going over articulation on Lord Vader here. Now, bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Now, starting off with the head sculpt itself, it is rather restricted. But don't forget, this is a dude wearing a full-on suit of armor. It's going to be restrictive in real life, going forward and back, side to side, and some pivot as well. Do make sure when you are moving the head to hold the dome in place. I can't count how many times that dome has gone flying off on my previous version of Empire Vader. The arms themselves go out to about there. This piece can move, but it's rather firm, so do be careful. Going forward pretty much as you'd expect. Swivel at the upper bicep, double bend there at the elbow, and a regular 1/6 scale joint at the wrist itself, Unfortunately, it is inside a glove, so you don't get a hell of a lot of range of motion out of that. The torso itself, not much crunch forward and back, but a plenty amount of swivel side to side, and some pivot as well. The legs themselves are really stiff, going forward only to about there without forcing it, going out to about there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend there at the knee, and of course a regular 1/6 scale joint at the ankle itself. Just going over the 3 cool and 3 annoying things with the 40th anniversary Vader. The first annoying thing isn't the fact that this removes, but it's the fact that they didn't improve on the mechanism. It's just a friction fit rather than a magnet. That means often it'll go out of alignment and then fall off entirely when you just try to move the head around. That is definitely less than ideal for a Hot Toys Vader. The second annoying thing about the Hot Toys Empire Vader is of course the red LED. There was no need to do that, Hot Toys, you could have used a white one. The blade is red anyway. That just means this is going to be even more dim. Honestly, I think at this point Hot Toys should just do away with the light up arms. Does anybody really use them? Let me know down in the comments below. The third annoying thing is the fact that the lightsaber blades don't really read as red. They come across more of a pinkish color, especially in person. In the camera lens, it's coming across more red, but trust me, when Dean Knight had the Rogue One Vader, he actually spray painted the blades a nice, vibrant red. Honestly, I'm tempted to do that myself, because these simply read as pink. The first cool thing about the Vader reissue is of course this badass display base. I love it. I loved it with the first release, and I love it again here. It's a beautiful piece, it's nicely sculpted and weathered and detailed, and it's a diorama piece that lights up. Honestly, if you can't give your figure a bunch of accessories, I think Hot Toys should lean even harder on the diorama style pieces, because absolutely with this one, they killed it. The second cool thing, and I know it's a bit of a cop-out, it doesn't really have anything to do with the figure whatsoever, but again, the instruction manual, just like Boba Fett, is a fold-out poster. That is super classy. Apparently, I'm pretty sure someone told me that Kenner did do this with their figures as well, but Hot Toys have done it here. It's a super nice image of Darth Vader, sort of fading into the stars. I really like the way this looks. And the third cool thing about Vader is, again, a bit of a cop-out, but it's the nostalgic Kenner-style packaging. I love this. You can have your Hot Toys Vader displayed in the window in this super classy box art. You can even pick up two. You can pick up the original version and this one like I have, and you do have a reason to display both, because you can have this one sealed in the box and it's still gonna look fantastic. Just wrapping up on the Hot Toys 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back reissue of Darth Vader. I have to say, this guy is a pretty darn good release, but is that really all that surprising? We already knew he was going to be. He's a really well put together figure. He comes with that really badass diorama style display base. The body, by now, Hot Toys have gotten down to a science. They've made a bunch of Darth Vader figures. Honestly, the only one left to make, or the only two I should say, is a Hayden Christensen Revenge of the Sith one, and of course a Return of the Jedi one. Fingers crossed they do the Return of the Jedi one sometime soon, because that Jedi Luke is looking awful lonely on the shelf. If you want my recommendation to go ahead and pick this guy up if you missed the first one, you don't need it. He is that darn good, still to this day in reissue format. Go ahead and pick him up. What are you waiting for? If you need an Empire Vader, now is your chance. He is in stock right now with ToysWonderland.com. Take advantage of the Black Friday deals. They do have 5% off store-wide using the code TW2020. Insert it at checkout and you can use it in conjunction with your reward points. Also, if you are heading down to the description, check out the link to pick up this guy. You'll need to click on that to head over to the store page. Also, check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.